Hello, everyone. I know it has been forever, and that's because I wanted to die for a while, and now I don't. Or at least I don't slightly less. But a long time ago, I started a poetry project, and I didn't finish it. It was on stream, and then I decided to finish it. So that's what we're working on here. So I believe it was the last stream I did about this. Someone had suggested on stream that the way I was thinking of the layout of this poem was to have one poem at the front, which probably won't mean a whole lot unless you've seen the other stream and remember it. But there'd be a poem, like a regular poem in the forefront. In the background, there'd be kind of like background thoughts or subconscious thoughts, two polar opposites kind of existing. And originally the way I wanted it was to look kind of like static, where they overlap each other, but they aren't like directly touching. I don't know. But someone in my other stream from many moons ago made a different suggestion, and that's what we're going to incorporate today. But right now I'm fucking around with trying to figure out how to more closely and accurately fuzzy select the letters, so that if I want to change their colors or anything, which I do, they don't look like, they're legible. That's what I'm trying to do here. How did I do this? I don't know. I remember I was fucking around with it for a really long time. I was messing with the threshold. Like I said, I really wanted it to be clean, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. I do figure it out. Don't worry. I figure it out. I just don't remember when I figured it out. Considering how fast this is sped up, I spent an awful lot of time fucking trying to figure this out. Jesus Christ. Okay, did I figure it out? Was that it? Oh, no, I'm sneezing. Okay, well, anyway. My life has been a mess. There isn't a whole lot to say about it, I guess. I doubt anyone's worrying about me, but in the freak accident that you are, don't. I'm fine. I'm fine enough. Yeah, so I'm still trying to fuck around with the threshold and make it nice and clean and pretty. I'm kind of stalling here. Like I said, this is a long time that I spent trying to figure out this one tiny little thing. There you go. No? Yeah? Almost? Gosh, I'm close. I'm close, guys. I'm close. I figured it out. There we go. I ended up selecting everything around. Yeah, that's better. Look at that. Then I went and kind of fucked it all up, but yes. Okay. So I was messing around with the threshold. That's what that boils down to. And so you can see this was the original layout. It was a portrait layout, and then you've got the different kinds of text in there. And like I said, I wanted it to be almost like static, where you could read like little blips and bobs, but they weren't overlapping each other to the point of illegibility. They were just I don't know. I don't know. So the other thing I wanted to do in addition to all of that was have some pops of color, if you will. Like if you think of this as an artistic piece, I wanted there to be bits of words that kind of stood out from the background, because otherwise it is fairly illegible and it's really easy for the eye to kind of skim over it and not pay attention to it, but it's there for a reason. I'm putting it there for a reason. It's meant to be emblematic, and it's meant to have, an impact. It's related to the forefront, whatever. So if I was doing this in a on physical paper, I would probably use a different, more random method of selecting words, but that wasn't what was happening here. So instead I was selecting kind of by just closing my eyes and wiggling the mouse around, which is sort of silly. And here I am kind of fucking around with trying to select everything just perfectly and getting really frustrated by it, so don't worry about that. Yeah, there you go. It's so silly. To be fair, I was hungry, I remember. I was high. Obviously, I'm hungry, I'm eating an apple. But yeah, this wasn't the most professional stream in my life, but I guess it doesn't matter. I'm just glad I was, doing it again. This was interesting. So again, there were two streams of thought. So this poem is called "To All the People with Perfect Partners," and we'll see the full poem in a little bit, but the gist of the poem is the kind of guilt and sadness that comes from being someone who's sick, either physically or mentally, and your partner or any other, loved one, friend, family member, having to put up with you. And that's kind of a callous way to put it, but that is, how I feel, is that my partner has to put up with me. They have to do things to take care of me that I don't really want them to have to do. And there are the background thoughts that I'm working on right now. There are two of them, right? There's the part of you that wants everyone to go away because you don't want to hurt them and you're sick of, being a bother and a burden to them. And then there's the part of you that doesn't want anyone to leave, that doesn't want to be alone, that really wants these people to stay with you, which I think is what I'm talking about right now as I'm eating apples. Also, someone in this stream, I don't remember when it happens, but someone asks me about poetry and what is a poem. I'll know it when I see it, but just know that a big long ramble is coming up. So there are two streams of thought, if you will, going on in the background of this poem. One of them, like I said, is the, don't go, please don't go, please stay with me. And the other one is, you need to run, you need to get out of here. I'm not good for you, I'm not good for myself, you need to leave. Yeah, fucking great, right? So here I'm kind of thinking out loud about formatting. See, this poem I want to be part of a larger project, which I have called The Rebellious Act of Healing, and I want it to be a chapbook kind of style, and I'm trying to show an example of what I mean here. So the other chapbook I made, which is up on Amazon, is landscape, and I did that on purpose because then I can print it at home a lot easier. And so I'm kind of looking at this and I'm thinking about what I want the formatting to look like, and I think something more like this, which, as I said, is the other chapbook thing that I wrote and released recently. Recently, earlier this year, really. So the nice thing about a landscape thing like that is, like I said, it's easier to print at home. I'm very lucky to have a really nice printer, because my partner got it from somewhere. He does IT stuff, so he will occasionally just acquire IT equipment. So like I said, I was really thinking really hard about how I wanted to format this, because the way I wrote this poem, I wrote it on portrait on purpose. The format and the lineup was very intentional. It fits on a single page. If I change it to landscape, that's going to affect the line break. It's going to potentially affect how long each little line can be. So I'm really debating. I do end up going portrait, don't worry. I won't leave you in suspense for as long as I left my poor stream. But it is when I switch over to portrait that I decide to try out that suggestion that I had, many moons ago. So here's where I'm trying to figure out, okay, I need to, figure out my margins, because I'm not doing this. When I do print it, it is going to be in a oh, hello. Now, ignore the incredibly shaky cam, which looks like shit sped up. Here's a cat. Here's one of my cats. Cat stream. The other cat, if you can hear her in the background, is pawing at me, desperately wanting to go outside, but she's not allowed outside. Anyway, so when I print this, if I choose to print it as a chapbook, I have to sort of pay attention to margins just to some degree. I have to know where the center is so that I don't print anything too close to the center of the page because it's going to be folded over. So I'm, trying to pay attention to all of that, trying to eyeball my margins. I'm kind of counting and making sure that everything looks good. I'm not as concerned with the latitude margins, so like the top of the page and the bottom of the page as much. I find that it's much easier for me to work around it. I do map them out just so that, again, like, it's even. But other than that, I'm not as concerned as I am with the middle, which is what I'm working on right now. So here's the middle. So now I have to be like, all right, okay, I'm gonna need to fucking make this fit somehow. And there were a couple ways I could have done it. I believe when I'm not distracted with the cat. I mean, to be honest, Jack the kitten is a very cute cat. I have very, very photogenic, very cute kitties. Even when they are up in my face right this current second, demanding attention. So anyway, right, so I have to confine myself, so now the way that the poem reads is a little different. Fortunately, I lucked out, and it didn't mess up how it reads too bad. I am kind of going over it right here and like saying it out loud and trying to figure out like, is this where I want it to be? And I decide I'm gonna have to bring it in a little bit more, partly for printing purposes and partly because, again, I'm trying to. There's this kind of rhythmicality that happens in poems, and so there's like a reason I line poems up a certain way. Something I'll get into a little bit more is a pet peeve of mine is when people read a poem almost like a paragraph, and that's frustrating. Line breaks are there for a reason. They are meant to be pauses. Something I believe there's, I don't remember where I read this, but I remember reading it as something in between a comma and a period. So it's not a full stop. It's more than a short pause. So if, like that, so if you're imagining me speaking a sentence, so, comma, if I was to read that way, the pauses are a little bit longer than a comma, but they're there, and they create rhythm. And so I'm having to kind of reread this out loud and decide where and how I want the rhythm to be. I also need to decide if I'm going to do what my viewer had suggested. I'm gonna need to plot it out a little bit because there's this big blank space now. One of the pages has a big blank space. So I could do it that way, and I decide, no, I really want to capitalize that lower kind of quadrant almost. The blue is the text that I've already started, please stay with me, very sad blue. So again, I'm trying to figure out how to cut it. So you've got, the red line is going to be all of the stuff the background thoughts I haven't written yet. And as I'm plotting this out, I realize that I want to have those two lines that you can see right there, but they are so good. I want those to kind of not have the staticky stuff in the background. So yeah, enjoy all my scribbles. But this is kind of my rough, crazy looking plan for how I am gonna lay out this text. And this is where I'm really glad that I had that viewer make the suggestion to me, because it starts to get really fun and artsy in a way that this could have. There's nothing wrong. I don't mind the original thought I had, but it's fine, you know. And I don't want fine. I want interesting. I want fun. Okay, so now I have to make this work. So, oh, hello, Kitty. We have Kitty joining us, both on stream and in recording land. I was gonna say live. This is really live. Anyway, sorry, I'm distracted. Okay, so I'm gonna need to do some shenanigans here. There again are a couple ways I could have done this. I could have manually aligned the text on that diagonal, and I decided that was stupid, and I did not do that once I'm not as distracted by the kitty. I also decided, like, if I'm gonna do this, if I'm gonna use this method, I still want bits and bobs of things that, like, the color pops out, but I also would really like, I want the text itself to actually be blue. This is, I think, where I decide that. Also, I've been handed tacos, so please ignore my face as I eat tacos. I was very hungry, and I decided to eat on stream. And now I'm fucking with the camera because the cat just messed everything up. Anyway, so like I said, I have done versions. Oh, there are my tacos. I have done versions of poetry where I would, like, manually move each line so that it lines up with those lines. That I said line like 3 times in a sentence. I don't even know if that makes sense. One of the reasons why I decided not to is there is kind of this charming quality, both from a visual standpoint. To me, I think there's a charming quality in the effect that I end up going with. But I also think, again, the way I have chosen to display the text, which you'll see in a moment, the way I've chosen to display that text is, again, kind of serving the function that I want the text to have, which is to say, the text is meant to be a background. It is meant to be the subconscious static in the back of your head when you feel like shit and you're wondering why on earth someone could ever want to spend any amount of time with you, either as a partner or as a friend, or as family members. Sorry, I tend to leave out family members a lot. Found family all the way. So, what I end up doing, very sloppily here. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of get rid of some of these line spaces, because in the other format I did kind of massage the text, if you will. I made it go places. I also, you can see that there's some stuff that's, like, you know, different font sizes or whatever. And again, that's mostly just for visual appeal. I kind of poke around, make things look nice, eat some tacos. And then, like I said earlier, I did decide that I do want all of the text to be colorized with specific words or phrases that are going to be more. So here's how I address the shape or the space that the text takes up. Yeah, I just erased a lot of it. And I'll go back and I'll clean up those lines. And by clean up those lines, I mean I'll diffuse them so they look like they're fading out. And yeah, I like, even just like this, I think this is cool. I've kind of had in my head for a while that this is not really related to what we're looking at here, so I won't go much into it, but I have other project ideas. And they would involve, you know, text like backwards, hidden text like this. I don't think this is the first time I've had a video with kind of subtext. So I'm sure this isn't like a shock to anybody, but that I have this kind of stylistic quirk. God, those tacos are making me, like, watching myself eat tacos is making me hungry. And there's a lot more of this video to go. Like, we are not done yet. I'm gonna have to just get over it. I really am. Okay, so what's going on? Okay, I'm screwing around with opacity is what I'm doing. And then I believe what I'm gonna start doing next is either do I bring in the other text now? Or no. Okay. Yeah, okay, so what I'm doing now is I am bringing in the other half of the text. So if you have oh geez. I already see typos. I hope I fix that. I do. Okay. This is sort of stream of conscious, but basically this is the other half. Like I said, go away before I hurt you. That kind of wounded want to be alone. Like when you're hurt, sometimes you want to isolate yourself. This is that. So I'm gonna slap down a couple of lines kind of randomly. There's, you know, a couple of repeating phrases, but they aren't like, I'm not putting a whole lot of like really deep, careful thought into it. I just want to get some words down, and then there we go. I'm gonna be a little lazy and kind of paste over it a little bit, and kind of clean it up, make sure I don't have any weird gaps or anything. I know there are probably typos in there, and I'm just gonna have to let them go. I'm just gonna have to let them go. I really am. Oh, excuse me. So now I'm doing that thing where I like close my eyes and randomly select text to be highlighted, kind of like the other half. So these text, this just bigger. I don't remember if the big text is necessarily the ones that I also like increase the color on. We'll see. It'll be an adventure for both of us. So alright, now I am going to do basically the same thing I did before. You know, make it a little easier on myself. Kind of get rid of some stuff. And then I'm going to bring up my eraser. And voila! For some reason I had a problem like kind of following that line. I don't really know why. And now I'm going to pick the red that I want. I do want it to be a fairly dark red. I do want this text to be, you know, legible. So there we go. This is what it's looking like, which I really, really, really enjoy. And then I'm kind of thinking about like, what am I going to do with this quadrant over here? I knew by this point that I wanted where the text intersected. I wanted that to be purple because, you know, red and blue make purple. Join me later for art with Kiwi. Basic primary shapes. Anyway, shapes, shades, colors. God, fuck, I'm tired. This is also where I decided that I wanted more of a fade out feeling, if you will. This is also where I realized that I had a typo like way at the top and it was bothering me. Someone might have also just told me about it. So then I decided to run it through. Remember how I said we were going to have to let go of our typos? We're going to have to let them go. No. Nope. That didn't happen. I am not using Word. So if it looks like I'm being freaking stupid, it's because I'm not using Word. And the program that I'm using, which, you know, for the most part is really good. It's LibreOffice. It's open source. But I could not figure out how to do find and replace in it. So, yeah. Anyway. I fixed it. It's fine. Cool. Now I have to redo all my work because I could not handle one typo. All that work. Gone. The moral of the story, kids, is to fucking read your work. Like, you won't believe... I do it all the time and I'm bad about it, which is why I'm warning you now. Like the papers I've written, which have been otherwise like very good technically, but have a stupid fucking typo, or an email with a like, just read your work, just read your work, read over it, run it through Grammarly. Like, why not? Grammarly is free. Anyway, okay, so I fixed it. It's fine. And now I'm going to deal with the fourth quadrant. Because like I said, I kind of wanted them interlaced. That's what I'm trying to describe here with my weird hand gestures. It's not working out quite that way. So part of the reason why I want those two kind of conflicting thoughts to interact with each other is that when the poem is all said and done, there will be text that is like, I couldn't have predicted it would line up that way. So there will be things that you can see in that little section down there that are different. They're unexpected phrasing, I guess is how I would put it. But before we get there, I am going to finally go through and highlight some stuff. It does look like I didn't like just do the big stuff, which I guess is good. Like, I don't mind. Anyway, so because this is going to be those tacos are really spicy. So when I'm wiping my eyes, it's not because I'm like overcome with emotion. It's because my partner made really spicy tacos. They were delicious, and thinking about them now makes me hungry. But they were spicy because he likes spicy food, which is great. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, so there we go. So what I'm trying to do now in between eating tacos is split the line between making that pop out text, pop out, but also, not make the for poem be illegible, which I think I succeeded with. It's going to be easier with red because red is a lighter color. So obviously it'll be a lot easier. And here we go. I'm just selecting a couple of things randomly. Again, I kind of close my eyes and just, grab something. And we're going to, essentially really all we're doing is upping the saturation. Really, that's all we're doing. And I've made them into a different layer, and then I adjust the opacity, and bam, you got yourself, pretty little thing on top. So yeah, even just this I think looks really cool. I really like that. It's peeking through the other text, and it just looks cool. So like I said, like, you could read this in a couple of different ways, and it's going to be even cooler when it's folded over and some of the stuff in the middle is like gone, is hidden. So that's fun. I'm so excited. And okay, so the next, now I'm gonna, I think, work on the quadrant. I keep saying I'm gonna work on it. I'm actually going to, don't worry. That kind of, it looks empty to me. So first of all, that text is going to be way more opaque, like that. Well, bam. And second of all, that text is going to have a different coloration. So yeah, what I'm doing here is I'm just checking to make sure that the threshold is good, so I'm not getting any weird, weirdness. Run everything through in purple. Instead of like paint bucketing it, I did decide to have a low opacity brush and just kind of, brush through it a couple times so that you get like different levels of purple, if you will. And then I'm going to kind of fiddle around with the edges a little bit because I don't want, you could see like there's an obvious like distinction. So I was trying to soften that up a little bit so like it wasn't immediately obvious that like some of this stuff, yeah, there we go. So the middle purple bit I do want clear, but the stuff that isn't technically part of the purple bit, I wanted it to kind of fade into it. It's still purple, which is fine. I don't, I think looking back on it now, I might have changed it back to being blue, maybe. And right there, what I was doing is I was hiding another typo that was very obvious to see, and therefore I wanted it gone. That I wanted a bit darker. So again, I just made another layer and bam, now you've got a little bit darker. You can read it. Yeah, overall, I really like how this is turning out. I think it looks really cool. And I think, what am I going to do next? I think at this point, oh, okay, so this might have been where I got the question, is this a poem? I thought poems rhymed. Can you explain to me what the difference between a poem and not a poem is? So I start rambling about this, and I will try to kind of summarize my thoughts here, but essentially a poem doesn't have to rhyme. A poetry, by definition, is lines of words that tend to follow a meter. So poetry, in my experience, can be you can call a lot of different things poetry. Also, poetry tends to be, rather than trying to convey specific practical information, poetry tends to be more involved with the with how things feel, with the emotionality of a situation. That's not always the case, but it can be. That's more traditional, I guess. Like, a poem doesn't necessarily need or want to tell a story. A poem doesn't need to have a plot. A poem doesn't really even need to have characters beyond the reader, I guess. That's a whole nother thought process. I could dive down that hole for a while. So what I'm doing here is I'm reading some of my own personal prose, cringy, old cringy prose, and then I'm comparing it to this poem right here. So this poem is a sestina, which is a type of poetry that it doesn't rhyme per se. It does have I guess you could call it a rhyme scheme, but it doesn't rhyme like Dr. Seuss rhymes, you know what I mean? And this is also where I'm explaining like the difference between how you would read a poem and how you would read prose. Again, focusing on the line breaks, there's they're broken there for a reason. So I actually do pull up the definitions, like the actual technical definitions for verse, for poetry, and for prose. And again, it's interesting because the more I talked about it, the more I'm like, the kind of stuff that I read and write, poetry and prose aside, the water can get really, really gray. So here's some more, technically if you look at it, that looks like prose. But when you read it, that's A Breath of Life by Clarice Lispector. When you read her work, it doesn't sound like a story. It's not a story. It's not intended to be a story. It's very emotional. There is a rhythm to it. There isn't a plot. There isn't, a goal that characters are trying to reach. It's more of an exploration than anything. So the line can be very, very blurry, and it doesn't matter so much. Like, you can look at very, traditional canon poetry, which is, which exists within these very rigid rules in order to encourage a kind of careful... I'm trying to think how to describe this. Like, poetry used to be this really rigorous, and it still is. There are types of poetry which used to be like incredibly rigorous, and you study for a long, long time. And this isn't just in Western traditions. The poetry that I'm more familiar with is a lot more of what we would call free verse, postmodern kind of poetry. It's not as concerned with those same kinds of restrictions. So I'm not writing sonnets. I'm not doing like little couplets everywhere. I'm not even doing haikus, which I like, and I have written a bunch of them, but they're not very good because that's a different kind of careful, regimented style. And when you put certain limitations on your writing, you will get certain effects, and those effects can be really cool. But the kind of limitations that I'm putting on my writing are things like what you see on the screen here, where the limitation is don't edit yourself too much. Allow the text to interact with itself in ways unexpected. A limitation might be randomly select words that are going to be highlighted and things like that. I wrote an entire thesis about this called Random Chance Elements, and I could read like blips from my thesis if I was so inclined. But essentially, like, there are different kinds of limitations you can put on yourself. A lot of the things that I'm saying for poetry are true for prose as well. I have, in fact, I'm looking at like a whole collection of like weird things that aren't really like traditional stories. You know, some are more closer to the traditional story side than others. But this is where I'd start talking about like hybrid work and mixed genre and like stuff that, you know, on paper, in form, kind of looks like prose, but isn't really. Then you have like, I don't know, it's muddy. And basically I kept talking to this person and like kind of trying to explain myself. I was also kind of explaining, I think I actually just read the poem in the stream. Woo! Big oops. Yeah, but I think about here I'm pretty much done. I quite liked what I was looking at here. I liked the formatting. I liked how the text I like it visually. I also like it thematically. I like what the text is doing. And I feel like it's expressing what I was trying to get across successfully. There are always things I could change and fix. And yeah, here's, again, I'm trying to kind of explain like the process behind the poem and why I wrote it, but I already did that for the voiceover, so I'm not gonna worry about that. I am going to do a reading of this poem, because why not? This is my poem. I can do whatever I want. So again, I'm still trying to describe the difference between like a poem and a normal poem. And I do have to add this kind of caveat here that I think I'm adding in this live stream is like, I don't write what people would consider normal poetry. My poetry is quite niche. But anyway, that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at the finished product. This, as a caveat before I read this, as you're reading this with me, because I assume you're going to look at the screen and look at the text, I want you to imagine in your head, in your headspace, imagine those words that you see back there are being spoken. I don't have the technical capacity to read this poem the way that I would like to. Okay? But I want you to kind of play along with me. The words that are in the background are there. Imagine that they're whispering to you, because that's kind of what I wish they were doing. To all the people with perfect partners, you know what I mean when I say that you'll never deserve them, and it kind of hurts in a soft, squishy way when they say, no, you're perfect, I love you, you're so kind and smart, and I like being with you. And you know you have never, not once ever, been kind or smart, and you hate being inside yourself, so how could anyone stand your outside? But they are so good that they see something worthy, something vibrant, tucked into your shadows, and when you change, you wonder, was this it? Was this what you liked? Are you leaving now? The soft, squishy thing shudders. You want to be good for them, to them. You want them to depend on you, and you get sick at every disappointment. You find yourself saying, I'm sorry, I'll be better, I'll get out of bed and do the dishes. No, you don't need to help me, you already do too much. And then there's the sex or lack thereof, because you were damaged and it has nothing to do with them, but your squishy, soft parts are bruised and you can't give this to them without bleeding everywhere, and they hate to see you seeping, weeping. But you know the worst is how they want to help, how they want to make it better, how they will suffer from 1,000 tiny cuts for you. You get to see them ruin just a little bit for you. It's not their fight, they're just a bystander, a casualty to be in the way of the shrapnel when you explode. Please, I'm sorry. No, please, you want to leave, you need to leave. Don't go, please, run before I hurt you. I know, I'm sorry, please, please don't go. Please, don't leave me, don't stay, don't, please, run, just go. I know you want to go before her, please, stay. I don't mean, please, stay, please.